For nearly 6 decades, Happy Hours Preschool has been part of the fabric of Twyford, helping generations of local children take their first steps into education. But at the end of this term, the charity-run preschool is going to close its doors for the final time as a new school-based nursery prepares to take its place. In this episode of the RG10 Podcast, you're going to hear me speak to long-serving manager Kate Cromar. We chatted about Happy Hours' remarkable legacy, how early years education has changed over the years, and what she hopes will be carried forward into the next chapter. Here's Kate.
So Happy Hours is a thriving preschool in Twyford village. We've been here in the village for nigh on 58 years. I haven't been there for all of those, obviously, because I'm actually not quite old enough. But 20 of those I've been part of. Happy Hours started as a playgroup with parents leaving their children for only a short time. I think it started off in the old schoolhouse that was on Ruscombe Lane, which became a church hall, which become two rather beautiful houses. And we moved into the Terrapin building in the grounds of Polehampton Infant School. That building had been there before we were, so it is quite old. So we moved into the Terrapin building and carried on, and early years kind of expanded. It went from being a playgroup to having a small element of funding. So children got 2 hours funding 25 years ago, to 2.5 hours, to then 3, to what it is now, where it's 15 hours for some children, and for working parents 30 hours. So it's all moved on in the years that we've been there, as has everything about early years, but we can go on to that in a bit more detail later on. But yeah, we've also always kept that ethos of being a community-based charity preschool. We have full-time staff, but we also are run predominantly by a board of trustees as a charity. So we have chair, secretary, treasurer, and committee members who do the kind of overseeing and running of kind of the business side, while us, as we were termed, blue ladies by somebody who I believe is in now year 7.
I just must feel I need to point out that for those people who are not watching this podcast, you're called Blue Ladies because you wear blue polo tops for no other reason than that.
Indeed, with our logo on. Beautifully made for us about 18 years ago by a very nice parent, Mr. Clark. Sometimes I can only remember the children's names and not the parents' names. It's terribly embarrassing. I'm just very glad that I remember you, Ben. Sorry.
That's all right. So let's bring things up to the present day if we can. Can you explain what's happening with the closure of the preschool and what's going to be taking its place? What's happening?
Early years has moved on a huge amount, and there's a huge government push for school-based nurseries. And as part of the academy, Polehampton, part of the Keys Academy, Polehampton wished to open their own nursery. So we can't run Happy Hours Preschool and a school-based nursery from the same place at the same time. So with heavy hearts, we do need to close. So we will be closing our doors at the end of July, ready for the school to open their new nursery, and for time to move on, and for them to have a school-based nursery that is run as part of the academy, not Happy Hours.
In general, how would you say that early years education has changed over the years? You've been at Happy Hours for 20 years.
It's changed enormously, but also very slowly. So you have to look back very carefully to see what's changed. So it's been pushed from the demands that parents need to work more. So it's not so much that it's just a playgroup for children to go to, although that is a huge element of the day is play. It's become childcare, hence why a nursery with longer hours is going to be beneficial to many parents within the village, rather than school hours that we've been providing. So it's become a demand for parents to need their children looked after for longer, but also the demands from the early years foundation stage, where things have moved on, that children need to be more ready for school, and that's done predominantly in preschools. So we've been really lucky over the years to have that relationship with all the local schools that we give children to, predominantly to Polehampton, because that's where we are based, but we send children regularly to the Collerton School, Charvel Pigott Primary School, Sonning, Crazy's Hill, all those local schools. So it's moved in its time from being what people see as just coming and playing to being assessed and seen. But that's not what the children see. They only ever see that they're playing. They get to explore lots of everything. They get to make lots of things, get to run around with their peers. They don't realise that we're watching and saying, they've made progress in that.
So we touched on challenges there, but let's talk about the rewarding aspects of the job, that kind of thing. And do you have any particular examples that stick out for you?
It's not so much particular examples, but what is absolutely wonderful is after 20 years, I bump into people in Waitrose. I don't often shop in Waitrose in Twyford, but when I do, it takes me forever because I always bump into people, and it's because it's that community spirit. It's lovely to see that those children still remember who you are and what you potentially did for them. You might not realise that you've had an impact in a child's life. One of the things that we started a few years back, I can't remember how many years ago, when children left, we took a picture of them with their key person. So their key worker was somebody who was the one that was. We all look after all of the children, but there was one predominantly person who was named to be overseeing progress and being that relationship with that child and with the parents. So at the end of their time, we'd give them a certificate, a graduation certificate, made by the same man that made my lovely logo, Mr. Clark. And with that would be a photo of the child with their key worker. And I know some families, at least that have just gone into year 7, so 11-year-olds that still have these up in their bedrooms. Knowing that you've had that sort of impact on a child's life or on the whole family, there are families where we've had, numerous children from those families. There's one where we not only 2 years ago had the 5th child of that family, so there's been huge involvements with lots of families within the village, and to know that you've been a part of that life is really quite lovely. So moments that stick out, there's always the one that will come to you with something in their hand and you're never entirely sure what it's going to be. Sometimes it's a poo.
Wow. Okay. Won't be shaking your hand next time I see you. Finally, then, if there's one thing that could be carried forward from happy hours into, if you like, the new setting, what would you like it to be?
I'd like it to be that sense of nurturing and care, and that it's about having fun with the children and being there for them, rather than pushing an agenda of you need to be able to achieve these things. Those things need to happen holistically around everything else going on. I'd love that they ended up with a staff team with the same ethos as us and were there to see many, many children through, as we have. I've been very lucky with the staff that I've had, very loyal staff who've seen years through with me. We've many, many years experience of childcare, mainly happy hours. As I said, I've been there 20 years, cut an eye on, and I'm not the longest serving, but I'm also not the shortest serving. So if there was anything, it would be that continuity for the children that would be so precious.
That was Kate Cromar from the Happy Hours Preschool. The RG10 Podcast is going to be back again in a couple of weeks' time, where we will be looking at the forthcoming Henley Festival. Remember to rate, review and recommend the show. Goodbye.